The astrology of April. Can I get a yeehaw? Oh yeah, here it comes. Okay. Hello everyone, Irlianna Samsara here, episode 244 of StarSound Speaks with the astrology for April. Let's talk about last month first before we get into the month of April. So last month we had, of course, our big ingresses. Saturn finally leaving domicile, entering Pisces, Pluto entering Aquarius, and of course, Pluto being a 20-year run, that's all just 20 years, a mere generation. And with it, of course, huge implications for artificial intelligence and democracy, freedom, society, but very, very loud with artificial intelligence. Anyway, when you have such a big change like that, it takes a while to really let that settle. Like when you move out of a house into a new house, yes, you've left the old house, but you're still unpacking. You're finding a place for everything. So there is this transition period. But meanwhile, we've got our eclipses this month. So what I'm going to talk about today, this is an overview of the month, just a kind of a sense of what we might expect. Overall, energetically, it just feels like the goddess. Mars is in the sign of Cancer, of the moon. The big news of the month is obviously the solar eclipse, the sun conjoining Jupiter. There's just two ingresses this month, Mercury, which will go retrograde in Taurus, and Venus in Gemini. Now, these signs are in reception with each other. Mercury is in Venus's domicile of Taurus, and then Venus is in Mercury's sign in Gemini. That's what I was saying about yeehaw, because this is like, I see this, very much our values are going to be highlighted here, what we value and how we embody those values, and what new ways of being and shedding old stuck patterns. Certainly our comfort zone about to be thrown in the air. There's certainly everything that we hold near and dear to us coming up for review. Mercury in the sign of Taurus, Venus's domicile, practicality. All of these things are going to be coming up to the fore. Resources, what we lean on, who we lean on, how we connect with each other. All these things really coming up strongly. Anyway, before I move into this further, just if you like this content and enjoy it, like, share, subscribe. We're always very grateful. Moving on, the month starts April 1st. Mercury, on April 3rd, Mercury will go into Taurus, where it will retrograde. So Mercury is going to be in the sign of practical, reliable, grounded Taurus, which rules cash and the things we value, and cash and our personal finances and our resources. Think about self-esteem, how we embody ourselves, and so our mind and our thoughts and our networking and connecting are all going to be around those topics. It's going to be, communications are going to be grounded, realistic, practical, or at least challenged by that, because Mercury is going to go retrograde. So it's going to spend 2 months, a little over 2 months, in the sign of Taurus. So Mercury will be in the sign of Taurus from April 3rd all the way through April, May, and into June 11th. It starts its entrance into Taurus, but what's also auspicious about that is it squares Pluto, right? Pluto in that 0 degree of Aquarius. So Pluto, Lord of the underworld, and this initiation, he's holding this evolutionary blueprint for our future, for how we embody, our who we hold ourselves to be with the highest ideals, right? Air sign, Aquarius. It's all about, it's out of that heavy Capricorn, and it's into, how do we invent and regenerate and reinvent ourselves along the highest ideals of who we are as divine light beings, really, truly, and or the absence of that, and what is the shadow of that, like AI, like selling your soul to this AI thing, right, of overstepping and overreaching. So what's being presented to us is really powerful right now. So from now through around June 10th, when Pluto stations retrograde at 0 degrees, these next couple of months are very critical. Watch what is happening, because this is going to be coloring our story around our society for the next 20 years. It's what is being shown in that 0 degree is the full potential of what can occur, and for better or worse, so we want to choose wisely. So Mercury enters that square with Pluto. That would definitely speak to our value system. And in terms of, you probably have been reading about this Chat GPT and GPT-4. Well, Chat GPT came right out of the eclipse in November, the November 8th solar eclipse in Scorpio, because it was conjunct with, it had the Uranus conjunction there. So yeah, very powerful. And I knew that would have to, it spoke to crypto, and certainly Samuel Bankman-Fried got arrested right in the heels of that eclipse season. And certainly the Chat GPT was announced. So there's been this like wild, wild west power struggle and big tech firms. Who is going to be the predominant player, right? Pluto's all about power and struggle and control and this obsession, right? This obsession with technology and who's going to be the dominant player. It's all getting coming up right now. But they actually, I don't know if you heard about this, but they actually, there was a very interesting story that came out just the other day, and it was about how there was a letter. It was an open letter that was written. This is an open letter signed by Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple with Steve Jobs, right? Remember, Steve Wozniak is still around. Elon Musk, and many others that want to slam the brakes on with generative AI. And so, it's the morality of this, questioning the ethics of this. So there were more than 1,200 other founders and top research scientists besides Wozniak and Musk that have signed this open letter calling for a 6-month pause on all giant AI experiments to get a handle on what is going on here, and are we overstepping ourselves, and questioning whether these effects will be positive and are the risks manageable. So it's really interesting that this is coming out right now, because obviously it's a huge conversation. And I can't help but think Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, and when she was born with Pluto at 29 degrees, the final degree of Aquarius. We're in the critical degree. They're both critical degrees, 0 and 29. So it's interesting. Here is this, which was considered the world's first sci-fi novel. And so the runaway effects of, playing God, here fashioning this creature. They talk about artificial intelligence. This is in the early 1800s. The 1818 is when this was published. So there's cautionary tale, and this is the energy that's coming up again. And this is the energy that we're being greeted with right now, especially with Mercury squaring Pluto April 3rd, and then going retrograde in the sign of Taurus. So we're reviewing our values and the things that are important to us. So this is a really big conversation this month, and it's going to have wheels. It's going to have an effect. We're going to move forward with all of this reconsideration. Wednesday, April 5th, Mars, which is journeying through Cancer, is going to square the moon in Libra. So Mars is squaring off with the moon right before it goes full. So this could bring us, with Mars in Cancer, we're fighting for security, we're fighting for comfort, we're fighting for that we can allow our emotions to be when we set our goals and make our choices and the directions that we're moving in, that we're incorporating our emotional life, we're incorporating self-care, we're incorporating how we feel about these things. And so that with the square with the moon, it might bring up some emotional outbursts, maybe, temper tantrums, hopefully not, but that can be the hard side of it. But there's this conflict where yes, we'll be heroic. Yes, we might look like a martyr, but we also want to address equality and considering others. Sometimes we can get so directed. Mars can get so focused on me, and we have to look and direct and think about others, which is actually going to be part of our lesson as we get into the full moon. The next day, we have a full moon in Libra, 16 degrees. It's separating from that square with Mars. So we will have had that conflict, but it's certainly coloring the full moon. The thing about this full moon is it's opposite Jupiter in Aries. So the full moon in Libra, opposite Jupiter. Jupiter is in Mars's temple, in the bounds of Jupiter. So there's a lot of energy that speaks to, being right and, doing the right thing, or standing up for one's truth, one's personal truth. we might feel very heroic in our quest where we must take action on something that can get challenged by, this kind of righteous zeal of like, I have all the answers and it lies with me, so we have to be careful that we're, where we go with all that. Yes, our actions are infused with emotion, but we have to just be aware of keeping that balance. As that happens, that's April 6th. Then April 7th, Friday, April 7th, that's when Mercury starts its shadow. It's retrograde. It's not going to go retrograde until the day after the eclipse, but it's going to enter the shadow period. So things are going to start, Mercury is going to start slowing down, and you can feel it. It's going to start that around at 5 degrees of Taurus, 51 minutes at 8:01 a.m. Eastern time. So adjust your clock accordingly. So we're going to start to notice it's starting to enter that kind of dream world of retrograde. It's going to go exactly retrograde. It'll be at its stationary direct point for the eclipse, and it'll go retrograde on the 21st of April, 15 degrees of Taurus, 37 minutes. And then it'll go out of that in May. Don't forget, this is still in this moment at this time for this coming week, you guys, this is still a great time. All the planets are direct. And you want to remember that all the planets being direct means this is a great time to launch things and move things forward. You can still do it until Mercury goes retrograde, technically until the 21st of April. It's still a good window. I would just say it's better to keep as far away, if you can get things done by April 7th, great. But the closer we get to that Mercury shadow retrograde, to the 21st, it gets really wonky in those few days right before it turns retrograde and right after it turns retrograde. It's that, U-turn in the desert with all that dust flying up. So just to be aware. Okay, Tuesday, April 11th, Venus is going to move into the sign of Chatty Gemini. Venus will be in Gemini from April 11th and through May 7th. Now you're getting away from slumbering and lumbering. Now it's into this kind of more of a hyped up vibe of connection with others. So it becomes more mental and chatty and social as it gets into Gemini. It will be overcoming a trine from Pluto in that first day or two. So again, Pluto's evolutionary imprint is saying, hello, Venus, let's consider this a major, our futuristic architecture, our ideas and our intellect for Pluto in Aquarius. Let's overlay this as you walk around and move and think with your mind and move and connect with and form connections with others that are, intellectual and data driven and all. Let's not forget the bigger picture. Okay, then the sun will come into, Jupiter will be Cazimi. So it'll be in the throne room, entering the conjunction with the sun at 21 Aries. April 11th, so the sun conjunct Jupiter is a beautiful, it's a very holy time. This is a magical time where Jupiter, who is, Zeus, Guru, the Vedic name for Jupiter being Guru, it receives its cleansing and its regeneration and purification, as you would imagine if you were standing in front of God, right? This giant flame, Moses on Mount Sinai. Every planet gets that opportunity. Jupiter will have its own, the planet of luck and wisdom and opportunity. The shadow side of Jupiter is being righteous, self-righteous, or zealotry, religious or philosophical zealotry, the need to be right, or think that I've got the moral high ground and I'm going to lord it over you. In the fires of the sun, this is the aspect of ourselves that gets purified. And the sun is in exaltation in Aries. So this is a very powerful time. And I'm just going to give a little shout out to Florida. Conjunction with Jupiter will occur in the 11th house, which is in mundane astrology, that's the legislation, the legislative branch and groups, large groups of people. And so as you can see here, it's going to be conjoining Pluto at 22 Aries, with Mars being the ruler of that here. There could be some philosophical differences and arguments and fighting that breaks out. Hopefully that will provide some regenerative aspects. It's been really, if you've been watching the news, Ron DeSantis, he's been really in this huge power struggle with Disney, also with the anti-woke legislation and the don't say gay laws. And there's this huge amount of restriction that has been going on with all these bills that he's introduced that are limiting conversations around gender and race and et cetera. So very controversial. I would expect more of that, and hopefully an opportunity here to address these things. But it could be pretty intense. Pluto is also the shadow. It shows us the shadow. So what has been hidden becomes revealed. Think of the Jupiter Cazimi, the truth, the ultimate truth. The truth comes out. So we expect more coming in from them, in that direction. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And but for all of us, that is a very powerful window. The sun conjunct Jupiter, wherever that is in your chart, is this huge boost of energy. Certainly it's a several hours on either side of that. For several hours before and after is a great time to be sitting in meditation, asking our higher selves, what is our highest truth? What is the direction where we get an infusion of hope and courage to carry on and to be brave and strong? And whatever area of our chart we have Aries, whatever house that Aries rules. So you want to go look in your chart and see, where this opportunity is for you. April 14th, Venus in Gemini is going to square Saturn in Pisces. So as it moves through continues its journey through chatty little Gemini, it's going to have this infusion from Saturn around maybe the need for a wisdom and patience, putting down boundaries around our emotions and around our hopes, wishes, and dreams, and maybe infusing that wisdom and patience with Venus's joyful ride through Gemini. The last big thing, of course, is the solar eclipse. This solar eclipse opens eclipse season. Now, remember, with Mercury going retrograde or into shadow in early part of the month, 2 weeks before, certainly a week before the eclipse, you really start feeling that energy kicking up. Eclipses are always major endings, major beginnings. The universe is saying, okay, time for transformation, time for endings and beginnings. It's in a cardinal sign. This is the beginning. This is like a little sneak preview of the next eclipse cycle. So we're going to be leaving the Taurus Scorpio eclipse cycle, which has been going on since around Thanksgiving of 2021. But this one is a solar eclipse in Aries. Sun is exalted, Mars in domicile. Andrea Michelle is coming. Yay, I can't wait. And she's going to be breaking these down for us. This is a preview of eclipses that'll be taking place between 2023 and 2025. You want to go back every 18.6 years is an eclipse cycle. So this eclipse is going to have resonance with eclipses that took place around 1986 to 87 and also 2004 to 2006. So if you go back in time and look, you'll see some resonance there. So these themes are going to be revisited again. The one thing I will say about this eclipse before I wrap up is, it's an extremely, of course, with any eclipse, and I'll be giving you some tips and things on how to navigate. It's my favorite time of the year is eclipse. It's like the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl of astrology is when we have eclipses. It's the spin cycle, the Maytag spin cycle. This is not the time to be getting married, making major agreements or major commitments, because things are going to get kicked up and Mercury is going to be retrograde, and it's just not going to get sorted out until definitely by at least the end of May. So you just have to give yourself a lot of time and space here and allow the universe to show you. It's going to show us what is ready for transformation, whether or not we were aware of it. And usually it's often things that we're not aware of, or we kind of have a sense, but then it really comes up in our face. So that coupon, that box of cereal on the shelf that has this expiration date, it's like, okay, this box of cereal is done. It's done its thing and it's time for something else. So an eclipse will remove things from our life that are no longer working. So at 29 degrees of Cancer, that's an anaretic or karmic degree. Cardinal signs initiate change, and when you think about leadership, and the ruler of this is Mars in its fall in Cancer. And so this is a place where Mars has to behave and has to incorporate goddess energy and goddess elements, the divine feminine. It's interesting, this eclipse, Mars is going to be at 13 degrees of Cancer for this eclipse. 13 degrees of Cancer is the USA sun, conjunct Sirius, the brightest star in the heavens. Amazing. This is, when you think about the moon, Mars is the moon's temple. The moon is not just the goddess and the goddess feminine, but it's It's our memory, our soul memory of who we are. So the fact that it's conjoined with Sirius, to me, that's very, very sacred. That's very holy. So we can look beyond things like, oh, this conflict and fighting and all this, and we can really look to see on a very, very large scale these things at play that are ready, that are like about to take center stage in our life. On a more mundane level, I think we would not only see conversations about women, shelter, women, comfort, emotions, security, these things coming to the fore. I would also think water, because obviously cancer. President Macron was saying that France had its worst drought on record last year. As we know, we've had record droughts at Lake Powell in the United States. They were talking about water sobriety. Right? This is like this new term. Well, nothing says Saturn in Pisces like water sobriety, right? Reservoirs in France, I was reading yesterday, they're 80% below normal. And there are water wars going on in Phoenix right now, where the utility companies want to raise rates like up to 46% over the next 2 years. So these eclipses are certainly pointing to these things which we must evolve, and it's time for evolution. It's time for transformation. It's time for breakthroughs. Breakdown, yes, but always the breakthrough. So these are some of the areas, certainly water, and where we will be seeing these changes. Last thing to say, 4 hours and 1 minute later, after the eclipse, the sun moves into Taurus, where they will square Pluto. Here it is, the sun. Now Pluto hands it to the sun. Okay, our values and our buying and selling. Mercury is in there, just about to go retrograde. We're revisiting all of the agreements and things that we've had, and the stories that we've had around selling, and our self-worth and our self-esteem in the sign in Venus's temple. So this definitely speaks to women. This reprogramming of our consciousness around women, or you could say, in terms, if you're a man, it's the aspect of ourselves that receives. So this is all being charged up and changed. Pluto is showing us what's obsolete. What's obsolete that you're not even aware. It's like the blind spot. You don't even realize this stuff is obsolete. Well, we're going to show you. So this is evolutionary blueprint of our future self architecture. Pluto and Aquarius, you could say it that way. It could, of course, it's going to speak to AI. It's something that speaks to being left behind or obsolete, obsolescence, change with technology, or be left behind. But technology doesn't always have to be the metal technology. It can be the technology of, say, the Kundalini breath. There are technologies that are beyond metal, beyond science, so it's like, hey man, there are many channels to this. So we're going to be getting deeper into that as we move through the month. But anyway, I hope that that's our month. Those are our major highlights for April. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast and gotten some value out of it. Let me know what you feel. I love hearing from you guys. Raise questions, ask me anything. I read everything. So very grateful. I hope you have a really, really blessed month. May we all move through this with the highest velocities of light and truth. And I know we will, because I believe in us. I believe in we. All right. That's all for now, guys. I love you all. Take care. See you next time. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Thank you all for listening.